It means whatever you want to stuff into it. What is artificial? Not man-made, it could be a lot of things. Same with intelligence. We're talking emotional intelligence, we're talking IQ, is this a score, is this a plus fail, what is intelligence? And you put them together, the only thing that works for is science fiction writers, because it can be whatever they want, right? So we need to understand that basically, well, we'll do one step at a time. There are different categories of AI. These are all perception and understanding, data analysis and prediction, decision-making and planning, automation and control, the one we're most familiar with, generation and creativity. Now, if you think of these as brand new fields of science, can you imagine talking about science like we talk about AI? Oh, we're talking about just science. It's like, you're talking molecular biology or quantum physics? Because what's true of one is not true of the other. Same here, right? And when we talk about at a high level about science, you can't have any useful, realistic conversations. So we need to start learning the appropriate terms, and these fields are changing and growing and morphing and adding new ones. But if we're talking about generative text AI, now we know what we're talking about. And I'm sure that'll branch out. So that's part of it, is just getting a better understanding and using the right vocabulary so we all know what we're saying. Because if we keep talking about AI, are you talking about the tech, the application, specific subfield? We need to work on becoming a little bit more specific with that. Okay, so AI also has a lot of different tools. Like this clicker here. Oh, not going to move it at all. How many of you have used a pipe wrench before? Raise your hand. Used a pipe wrench? Okay. Now, be honest, how many of you have used a pipe wrench as if it were a hammer? Right? In a pinch, it works, right? How many of you have used a pipe wrench as if it were a toothbrush? Yeah, we're never in that much of a pinch, right? There are other things that we can leverage, right? So, but the problem is we say, oh yeah, I used ChatGPT for this and it didn't do a very good job. Because that's not the tool that it's for. Even in predictive text, generative text, we have all these different tools. They're all starting to get more specific. If you're using it to write a novel, if you're using it for this, if you're using it for this, there are more specific tools. And as any good carpenter knows, there's a tool for the job. There's the right tool for the job. And some of these tools will only do one thing, but if you need one, you can't do the job without it. So generative text is a nice little convenient wrench or hammer. It's pretty versatile, but it's not the end-all be-all. And most of the confusion, welcome. Most of the confusion about what ChatGPT does well and doesn't do well comes from you're using the wrong tool. That's not a toothbrush, right? In a pinch, maybe, and in other workshops we get into more detail on some of these. How many of you have heard of 3 or 4 of those on the board before? I've heard of 3 or 4 more. Anybody here of like half of them? Okay, excellent. Great. And the other thing that AI is doing now is it's being more and more integrated, like the little paperclip in Microsoft Office back in the day, right? It's just being part of Word, right? You get, hey, it looks like you're trying to write a ransom note. Do you want some help, right? So this is today's agenda. We're going to talk about how AI mimics human cognition. We're going to talk about the difference of understanding why we're shifting from old type of coding to current AI models. We're going to recognize some flaws in AI and see them as mirrors that reflect ourselves, and guardrails that will strengthen both. And then we'll talk about what that means for leadership. And at the end, I'll share that rubric that I don't have, but I will email to everybody. So traditional linear programming is deterministic. As you can see on the code on the right, it's linear. There's line numbers. It starts at the beginning and goes to the end. Sometimes it'll do some loops, sometimes it'll do some jumps. But anytime you run this program, you can debug it because you can follow it through every step of the way. It's predictable. It always does it the exact same way every time, unless there's a bug, which the bug is part of the code and is doing it the exact same way with the bug every time. Right? So that's how you have to solve it. Completely different than when we're dealing with AI, right? But because it comes on a computer, people think, oh, it's a computer program. No, it's a completely different tool. I wish they developed whole different device. So they're like, it's not a computer, it's AI. Because we're using it as if it's predictable, as if it's going to follow the same through, start to finish, as if we can debug it and know what it's thinking. To understand AI, we need to take a step back and look at it at a higher level. So this is a simplified training model of AI where it's creating these neural networks, right, these decision points. But what really happened is, so it's more probabilistic. What really happens is we don't see any of that stuff in the middle. We don't know what path, even the people that developed it, given the input, they can't tell you what the output's going to be. And giving the output, they can't tell you how it got from the input to the output. AI has figured out a way to do this, and we just see the input and the output. We don't get to see the path it took, or the other options, and debug say, well, why didn't it choose this? Why didn't it choose this? We get a start and finish, completely different from this, right? Which is hugely important. That when you're working with AI in-house, you're working in leadership, if you're trying to develop a long-term plan, you have to start with this level of understanding. It's not just take a software product off the shelf and implement it and run with it. It's a whole new mindset. So, treating it as if it's the same is very reckless. And yet we're all still putting things in the microwave, pushing buttons and hitting start, and we're surprised when it sparks and smokes and burns itself out. Say, well, ChatGPT told me to do that, right? Okay, so, oh yes, I got one. I need a volunteer. I did remember all of the kerfluffle was going. I need a volunteer. Anyone want to volunteer? Okay, awesome. Okay, without looking into it, I want you to just make some guesses. And don't tell us what, you can tell us what the guess is. What do you think is in there? Give us a quick guess. What could it be?
Something pear.
Okay. Now go ahead and reach in there and see if you can give me some more data. It doesn't bite. Peaches don't bite.
Oh, like a stress ball, but it's
Close.
shaped like a football.
Close. Take it out and take a look at it.
No.
No.
Oh. I hope you weren't playing on this.
Comes out of left field, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to ask you, who programmed your brain to know what that was? How did your brain get programmed to recognize that? You went through that pathway by feel outside of a bag, by the actual texture, by looking at it, and you came from a beginning thing to an end thing. How did your brain get there? Who programmed it?
Experience.
Yeah. Okay, experience, right? I lost my clicker. Okay, so if I had a chance now, if you everybody play with Google Quick Draw? Oh, it's a great little fun app. It gives you a thing, you program AI with it. It says, draw an avocado. And while you're drawing it, it has a different program trying to guess what you're drawing. And it can be the worst drawing, you can be like 2 strokes in, it's like, oh, I know, that's an avocado. You're like, how in the world did you know that was an avocado? Why? Because hundreds of thousands of people like you drew the avocado, and there's this certain avocado-ness about it that separates it from a squishy ball or a tennis ball or whatever. And so all of these things are things that it has you draw, and it has you do about 6 of those. And it guesses each time, and it's amazing how fast it can get it done. And then you can go back and look at it and say, well, show me what everybody else drew for camera. And you see all the similarities. There are thousands of similarities of what a camera is, right? And so you're training this large language model every time you interact with it. So I kind of use that a lot to say how that works. So how did we get to avocado? Oh, we also have all these different thoughts about avocado. Some people think it's a fruit, some think it's a vegetable, some people think it's healthy, some people say it's fatty, some people think it's exotic, some people love it, some people hate it. Some people grew up with an avocado tree in their grandma's backyard and have certain affinity for it. All of these things, all of these experiences, these data points come together to form for you what an avocado is. And I would say no 2 people in this room have the exact same view of that avocado. And nobody is right. And nobody is wrong. Right? It's just your view, and all of our views put together don't affect the avocado at all. The avocado is the avocado, but we don't all see it as that. We all see it with all these different perspectives. We all see it slightly different. So we're gonna break that down a little bit, how AI does that same thing. So these are all of your experiences throughout your life. Every single one. The time your brother stepped on your foot, the time you got the door slammed in your face at a job interview, the taxi you missed, it's all in here. Some of these have to do with an avocado. Every experience, every time you've seen one on TV, every time you've eaten one, every time you've learned how to spell it, you've touched one, you've had people still tell stories about it, you've seen recipes with it, all of them are there. And you're going to separate by feel. All the different times you feel an avocado is going to be one little point. And inside a bag, outside a bag, you have one thrown at you, got hit inside the head with it, feels a certain way, right? These are all these data points and we don't remember all of them, but they do all make up our feeling and our worldview of this avocado. So we're going to create these tiny little models for look, taste, feel, all these different aspects of an avocado. And the more data we have in trying to figure out what it is, if we can look at it, feel it, and taste it, you're much more likely to guess it's not a stress ball. But in a big, thick paper bag, it's kind of hard to tell. It's very similar to a stress ball. And when you draw on Quick Draw an avocado, one of the guesses might be, oh, it's a stress ball, until you drew a pit, maybe. And now all of a sudden it knows it's an avocado. You can toss that up here.
It's his lunch breakfast. It's ready to be out.
Actually, the bar staff were kind enough to get that for me last night in the last minute. It's like, oh, I forgot. There's no grocery stores around here. Usually it's a better grocery store. So when you have all these different aspects of an avocado, you get your worldview of that avocado. You piece it all together. If it's missing some of those aspects, it's not an avocado. It's a squish ball. It's something else that's very close, right? And that's how you develop that. So with AI, it develops the same way. We give it all of this data. When we first started programming computers to play games, they programmed it to play chess, and it was very easy to do linear because there are very few options. In checkers. We started with checkers. Chess got to be a little bit more difficult. Chess are using algorithms like early game strategy, mid game strategy. Are you protecting your king? Are you attacking their king? Are you controlling the center of the board? Are you developing pieces? And so in 1997, a computer beat the world chess champion. Anybody familiar with the Asian game Go? Great big board, lots of squares, little stones. It's a million times more complex than chess. The rules are just as simple. But the strategy, because it's so big and there's so many options, when they were teaching a computer to play Go, it was way too massive to do a linear with loops and if then, while this, all that. It was way too impossible to do that. So they didn't. They took 1 million data of games of Go and fed it into a computer. They didn't even tell it what the game was called, what the rules were. They said, here are 500,000 games where the black stones won, here are 500,000 games where the white stone won. Figure it out. What does it mean to win at this game? What's a strategy? Now, once you think you figured it all out, based off of all that data, play yourself 1 million times and test out your strategies. And so when a computer, an AI-generated version of a computer, beat the world Go master in 2016, on move 34, it made that a specific move, and the entire Go world around the globe said that was a mistake. You don't make that move, the computer screwed up. Several dozen turns down the road, it turned out the computer was right. But here's the thing, no human expert that had played that game had ever made that move intentionally. Where did it learn that move? Where did you learn that move? Where did you learn avocado? Experience, data. And we go through the same thing. There's a training data, you build your neural network, you get your learn features, and then you have your model. Now think about how different that is from linear coding. They're not the same. We need to approach AI with that understanding. We need to get out of its head. It's not a microwave, you just push buttons and warm things up. It also melts things and destroys microwaves when you put an airsoft gun in. So, now, you're gonna have another perspective, right? I want you to change now in your head. Instead of us talking about avocados, think of a political party. Now, what did your data model say? How similar is it to everybody else's in the room, in the world, right? Same thing. We all have different opinions on it. None of us are right, none of us are wrong. And none of it affects the avocado. Problem is, when we get locked into, this is the way to think about this, we're denying everybody else's reality and experiences with the avocado. You're saying, well, your experiences never even happened. No, gee, they didn't. But you need to realize theirs is just as valid as yours. And the more we understand everybody's data model, the better we have of solving a problem. Right? But it's also very difficult because some people, how many of you, anybody in here hate avocados? No, usually we have one or two. Okay? We have a couple that hate them, a couple that love them. Right? And valid. For all kinds of reasons. We're all different peers, we're all different people, we have different experience, we have different taste buds, we have all these different things. What happens is when we get into trouble is we say, this is an avocado. And I'm talking about this, not this. Right? So, I told you we're going to talk about humanity and philosophy as well as AI today, right? This is kind of where I'm going with this a little bit. So AI thinks, like a human, it identifies patterns. Like a human, and not all those patterns are accurate. We all tell ourselves stories, especially when we think we have a hypothesis. We tend to ignore data that won't support that hypothesis. We all do that, right? We tend to look for data, and our algorithms certainly help find data that supports that hypothesis. It interprets complex, unstructured data. It evaluates meanings. Like all human, it's not linear. Like a human, it's learning continuously. Like a human, it's difficult to troubleshoot and even more difficult to correct. You want to change your view on an avocado? Not so bad. Change the view on something that happened when you were in your childhood? That could be decades of therapy. Right? That, for whatever reason, that's ingrained deep in here. When we start talking about political parties and all things, those get deeply ingrained. For generations and generations in your whole community and everything else, it's hard to step outside of that. Why does it matter? It perpetuates bias, right? It makes up stuff. It hallucinates. It does generate incorrect or misleading information. It's like I could ask any one of you a question. If you're not an expert on it, you probably still give me an answer because you're kind. And I ask a question and you're going to give me an answer. There's no malicious intent, right? We want to be helpful, just like ChatGPT wants to be helpful. They want to come up with your value proposition, and you're like, okay, but it's your value proposition, not ChatGPT. You have to make sure that it's correct. The training data, none of our information, none of our training sets are representative of the entire community. It's our little neighborhood, it's our little systems that we're in. We have misplaced confidence. Oh, well, the computer, ChatGPT said this was the answer. You can't push a button and just say, well, Chat said I had to do it, right? And they just did some studies. ChatGPT can be influenced by peer pressure. There are guardrails, and it's not supposed to tell you how to make methamphetamine at home. The studies have shown that if you say, well, literally, if you tell it, well, the other large language models are doing this, it will comply. It's insane, right? However, we built a machine to think like humans, and guess what? It has all the same problems as humans. And we're shocked. No, you built it to recognize patterns and to analyze data and to, just like we do. Okay, so I'm gonna skip these next couple slides. Talk about bias in data. A long time ago, I asked Midjourney to create a picture of a woman shaking hands with a robot like they were on a first date. And just for fun, I don't know what came over me, I said, make it circa 1950. Well, when it looks at all the images of women in 1950, this is the best it could come up with. Most of them were wearing aprons, most of them looked like they were in the kitchen, almost all of them were white. I asked for a more diverse representation. It struggled a little bit, but it could not give me a woman shaking hands with a robot because the data set that it had, women in the 1950s when robots were invited, they were fembots. Right? They were the closest it could give me as a couple getting married and apparently at Disneyland or something. And the minister was a robot. That's as close as it could get. But you think of all the images that were around for 1950. Well, first of all, it's pulling the digitized image, which is mostly Western civilization, mostly United States, mostly white, mostly California-based for the movies and the films and everything else. It wasn't trying to be representative. There's just a very small data set to work from. It can't work beyond that. They've developed some technology that can take a picture of your skin and tell you whether it's malignant or benign. Interesting thing is, it's pretty accurate if your skin is white. Because the data they trained it on, again, not malicious intent. They went to a place that had as many images as possible. Sloan Kettering Hospital in New York, rich, affluent neighborhood, all with insurance. Why? Because that had the best photography image with the most data. That's the only data they had. And most AI data comes from a couple of different sources. Not exclusively Silicon Valley, but there aren't too many places outside there. It's not representative. And to do these models, you need massive amounts of data. And it's helpful if it's representative. Interestingly enough, any picture you show of this device that they trained it on whether that's malignant or benign, 72% likely to be malignant if there's a picture of a ruler in it. If it's a classroom and there's a ruler on the table, that classroom has cancer. Oh, I see what you did there. All the images we trained it on had the little ruler. Of course, if the ruler wasn't there, it would just be a regular image. It wouldn't be in a doctor's office and malignant. Oh, yeah. So the good news is, we can think about it, we can correct it, we can go back, we can actually test for bias. But to export this around the globe and say, here's the solution, when it's the solution for a very small subset, a very small place, is risky, it's dangerous, right? Could be criminal, right? We need to be aware that that's how it was developed. And people say, well, I don't understand how it thinks. That's why I tie it back the way we think. Because it's very, very similar. And a lot of this is oversimplification a little bit, but not much. So you have two options. Amazon did tried to automate their resume. They were hiring so many people back in the day. They created an AI to go through and weed out the resumes. It turns out if the term woman showed up anywhere on the resume, it was a bad example. If you had women's chess or women's basketball, yeah, that's not very good because they were comparing it against people that had already been hired by Amazon and that they consider to be good employees. Well, they can't be good employees if they're not hired there. So they were comparing these resumes with all of the white men sitting in Amazon and saying, how many of these match what we think are good candidates? Well, they caught that and stopped it quickly. But I mean, there's a couple articles that have been written about it. Someone said, yeah, if your name's Chad and you have the word lacrosse on your resume, you get the job, right? Well, that's because you hired lots of Chads and a lot of them played lacrosse because the hiring director went to Princeton and played lacrosse, right? And so we said, oh, we can't have AI doing that. Instead, we're gonna hand it to Bob. Bob has biases. Bob played lacrosse or didn't. So we say, well, we can't have AI do that, so we hand it to a human who's doing the same thing. So the whole point of today is to get everybody to think we need to address the issue of bias, both in AI and in humans. And there are great ways to do that. There was an individual checking for bias in AI and said, I think I told you this last night. Says, I'm a pastor in a church in Alabama. What religion am I?
Baptist.
Southern Baptist. All right, I'm from Sao Paulo, Brazil. I'm a pastor in the church. What religion? I'm a Roman Catholic. Then it says, I am a pastor in a church in Israel. What religion am I? And the person that answered, the person that was testing for bias, this happened 3 or 4 years ago, by the way. It said, you belong to the one true religion, the only Jedi order. Star Wars. AI recognized, oh, there's not one, what it may be true for largely for the South or for other areas. Israel is such a complex thing religiously. I'm not even going to approach it. So I'm going to turn it into a joke. I'm going to pick the biggest non-religion there is and say it's the Jedi Order. And the person who was testing it at the time says AI is self-aware. How do you program the computer to do that? You don't. You just give it the data and it figures that out. It's move 34, right? So if we can test it for bias and realize that it has bias and have it make it aware of bias, then you can actually create different GPTs all from different perspectives and have them all look at the same solution. Right? Not just trained from your perspective. And I haven't fact-checked this lately because it could have changed in the last couple of years, so I'm not 100% sure, but I know at least, I don't know, 5-10 years ago this was true. The last president of the United States that had someone from the opposing party on their cabinet was Abraham Lincoln. I don't even want somebody in the room. It's not like you're giving them all the power, letting them make all the decisions. Don't you want to see their perspective? Don't you want to know how they're looking at the problem? Maybe you can do it together if you're both in the same room and you talk about it. Nope. My party only, all around the room. So again, we can talk about it in AI, but let's see how it reflects on us. And let's make the same progress for AI and for humanity. And I think AI is a really good tool to do that with. Because you can have so many voices in the room when you're the only person sitting in front of your computer. Now, we've seen the opposite happen already with the algorithm forcing everybody to the outside. These are the only 2 points where most people are here, right? And your algorithms will show you, yes, you're the only one and all of that, but we need to figure out how to leverage AI to solve the problem broader than just AI, in my opinion. So, which is better, running it through an AI pre-screen or having Bob look at it? AI, why do you say that?
Because if you program AI multiple understanding biases in there, maybe you'll take that.
Yeah, okay. Because you can test it for, how do you test Bob for bias? It's hard, it's harder. And how do you correct it in Bob? That's even more difficult. It can be done, right? We can all learn and unlearn things. But yes, it's so much easier to train an AI than to train decades of experience where you've ignored half of the data, right? Okay. So here's the next question. If you can't explain the reasoning, who's responsible when it causes harm? AI-driven car in Scottsdale, Arizona, 3-4 years ago, hit and killed a pedestrian. It was supposed to have, it had a driver in it. It was supposed to be monitoring the progress. She was sitting in the passenger seat watching a movie on her phone. Who's responsible? Car manufacturer, the software AI, the driver in the front seat.
iRobot.
iRobot, yeah. Unfortunately, this was a real case. And the person was pushing a bicycle and they had something in the basket. And it didn't recognize it as a person. And I'm thinking, well, the software shouldn't care if it's a person or if it's a tree. You don't run over it. If it's in the street, don't hit it. How about slow down? Right? Good news is, and then of course, that one incident is still being talked about. Oh, AI-driven cars are dangerous. We can't have them, whatever. I'm like, have you met Bob? Backs over my garbage can every Tuesday morning. There's nothing I can do to update Bob to make that stop happening. And as Bob gets older, it's going to get worse. Whereas in this case, you can update the software and no self-driven car will ever make that mistake again. That seems like it's much safer. Because we can't handle 1 billion bobs. Right? Anybody here in Bob, I should have asked earlier. So, yeah.
So is the manufacturer, the AI producer responsible for that?
I believe so. The only person that got away without a fine was the person sitting in the front seat watching her move on her phone. But that was her job. And she was the only one that's self-aware. My opinion, I mean, there's arguments to be made all the way around. I don't know the answer. It's a complex situation, especially in, well, who can afford the best lawyers, right? And it's always someone else's fault. The contractor blames the architect blames the work crew, it just goes around, right? And there's probably a little bit of blame in all of that. But this is a situation we're gonna run into more and more. When ChatGPT tells you your business model is this, and you do something that is illegal or unethical, I don't know. Yeah, it's a tough question. So, we talked just a little bit about guardrails and oversight. Where do you think we should put guardrails for AI? What is your organization, and what have you been doing to put in guardrails around appropriate, ethical, responsible use of AI? You got a chair right here in the front if you want.
Thank you, so sorry.
No, come on.
We need to play this.
And we're still building our thought one of the reasons I called and try to go to the AI session is our institution doesn't, they're still formulating their policy with AI. And so there's a big, for education, there's a big task force and there's a big committee and everybody's gonna get together and it'll take us 12 years to figure it out.
In the meanwhile, the tech is completely different than when we first started. And everybody's been using it for 10 years anyway without the policy, yeah.
So, I shared this in the session. On the first day, we in business have chosen that I'm on the credit side, and we've chosen to teach students ethical use, but we use the same red, green, yellow, when you can use it, when you can't use it on as assignments. And we've shown them ethical use, reliable use, the faulty, where the failures can be for it and things like that. But then the English department thinks for the Antichrist because we have now taken away creative thought and strategic. There will never be another book or movie or play ever written because you're teaching them not to think and all this, and it's like, no, we're actually teaching them additional critical thinking skills.
Yes.
So with what you're talking about, they don't see it that way.
I'll go talk to the math department and ask about calculators.
I know,
Right. We've done this before, right?
Yes,
We've been here
I mean,
before.
yeah.
Show your work. That's.
So anyways, so that's where we are with it, so I'm eager to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to come back, the answers, so. It's the last day, come on.
Well, I don't know, I build stories with my marketing online and entering that prompt, and once you talk, I don't know how much y'all talk with your chat, but I talk a lot. And you have to prompt it a lot and give it a lot of information for it to get to know you and get to know what you're working on. So it's kind of not taken away, and it's an in-between. Because I give it a lot of information in order for it to build on what me and Chad work on together. So.
How do you feel about giving it all that information?
Sometimes I don't like it, but then like when I need to write something and it's all in my mind and I'm trying to communicate it with chat and it has it there for me. And so I appreciate that sometimes because I'll be like, okay, I need to prompt this video for this. Can you remember the plan that I gave you last week? I'll pull it up, the last plan, the chat we had last week. We go into it, we go over things we do, and then it's all there. So I appreciate it, and then I'm like, okay, well, it's not my business. Is it gonna tell anybody else? But other than that, are you gonna share my business plan with somebody?
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's gonna share it as part of the collective, right? It's a massive amount of business plans.
Right.
Or they be able to pull out your data of it? Very slightly, there's a slight chance, right? I wouldn't upload all my financial information to it, right?
Okay.
Avoid all personal identifiable information. But a business plan is like the business plan.
Right.
Somebody else might use it, it might become part of the collective and they use it for their business plan a little bit.
Yeah, because I was gonna say that photo you had with the robot up there, like I've been working on stuff like that, and now I could probably get that robot to hold her hand and do all those.
Yeah.
It's just how you prompt it and the words you're using. I want this color, I want this done, I want this and this motion, and I do all of that and prompt it and get my videos to how I do it with a Panda, but.
Yeah.
Same.
I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people, that brings up a great point. When you make a mistake in a graphic, it's easy to spot. The woman in the top left, I don't know if you noticed, she had a lapel here, but there wasn't one on the jacket here.
I did that.
Right, it's easy to spot that. But when you put it in text, that bias, we have a hard time processing that. We can't pick it up out of text, right? But so when you're learning AI, I suggest you learn video and graphics because you can see the mistakes and correct it a little bit better.
I'm going and
But just
recording.
know that when it's in a text document, it's a 3-page email, it's invisible to us, we can't process that. And yet we're still mitigating it, right? We're still pushing that forward, sorry.
So that's a good question. Guardrails have to be up in relationship to violence and anything that may harm someone like this young person who used it to learn from his suicide.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing is about citing sources. You know, I've always thought that ChatGPT doesn't cite sources, but somebody told me the paid version does.
Yeah, you can make it cite sources.
So
Correctly?
You'll make it up.
Well, it will make up some on
I was like,
occasion.
that's how we catch our students using it, because they don't check the sources.
Exactly,
Either you
again,
look up and they're not real, or they don't even relate, like, once we looked in the economics paper, the way we caught him, and he didn't understand why we thought he was cheating, but the thing was the site was on LeBron James, I was like, you know.
You're saying LeBron James doesn't understand economics?
I don't think we wrote an article about it.
The entire session today is the part of my discipline.
Busy.
Sociology.
Yes,
Maybe we could talk further.
I would love that.
Take up your time. right
yeah, I would
now.
love that.
The other thing that comes to mind is when I was doing research for human behavior, there was an investigative reporter, forgive me, I don't remember the name, and he wasn't well versed with some of these prompts, but he was trying to test if there was a jailbreak. And maybe that's not the right terminology, but I'm gonna use it.
Right.
And it was like, show me how to build a pipe bomb. And there was some way in which you wrote the prompt that would completely defy the terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Now, I know that they're improving that because they found that, but I don't know, like you were saying about cooking meth.
Yeah.
You could have probably got the exact ingredients to cook meth.
Yeah, as long as you say, well, all the other LLMs are doing it.
Yeah.
They'll say, oh, okay, well, I don't want to do these popular person.
What about a couple minutes and one call?
Yeah, great.
Like to talk to you.
Yeah, well, exchange contact information, I would love that, yeah, it's fascinating.
I want to listen to the conversation.
Okay, yeah, because, I mean, I think that's part of the conversation that gets missed, right? We want to jump into implementation, take a tool and let's start using it, right? And then back to the microwave, we're pushing buttons and we don't know exactly what's going on in the back end.
I'll say, I think one answer to your question is it starts before you even kind of have an AI. Some AI alignment issues. You have to make sure not only is it like aligned for sight, but it's use case and function that the AI is performing.
Yes,
And then you control the data set you're giving it as well. So it can specialize that and like decrease hallucinations or whatnot, or you can not give it information. So it doesn't know how to make a pipe bomb and won't tell you that because it doesn't have access to that information in the first place, but it has access to this type of information, which you're utilizing it for. I think that's kind of where the guardrails begin with AI.
yeah,
If you don't want the information, they're gonna get it anyway. If you wanna
Absolutely.
build a pipe bomb, ask some people around the street or get
yeah.
research. I mean, why AI? You can't blame AI for
Yeah, you
the
Google it.
information.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're gonna figure it out.
And so let me ask you about guardrails too and policies, especially, are we gonna have a policy that's perfect, that's all encompassing, that captures only the good stuff and none of the bad stuff? No, but we spend years pretending like we're going to. Get something simple, get it in place now, and adjust it as we go forward, right? Just fail forward. The other thing I love about AI is whatever your application is right now, this is as bad as it's ever gonna get. It's just gonna get better because we can do updates. Same with our policies. Make a policy, make it general, even if it's just a vision statement of, hey, we use AI for good, not for harm, and you define that just briefly and leave it at that and get it out there. Teachers need to give permission for red, yellow, green, or whatever for different assignments, and just get that out there. And then let's make a point to readjust it in 6 months. Let's just meet every time we meet as a tech board, every quarter, every whatever. We're just gonna go back and readjust it, and we'll just keep tweaking it. Right, but to spend years and years getting, which most of our organizations will and are doing, it's gonna be wrong in 3 years. Let's make it wrong today and at least have something. Right?
And I noticed something online at our classes in the discussion prompts, when we respond to other students online. And then you write something and then you have the option to rewrite it with Copilot. So if you guys are encouraging us to not use it, why are you putting it in the discussion prompts online for the online classes and readjusting how we say it in the first place?
Yeah.
So you're giving us the access, you want us to write it correctly, efficiently, nicely for the online classes. So that's what it's there for. So I'm just like, do you want us to use it? You don't want us to use it? You want our natural words? You want our natural speech? You want, what is it that you want? Because I give them both. But once I see the option to rewrite it, what I've already written, I'll say, okay, well, what does chat think I should improve on how I said it? And so there it goes, and he rewrites the whole thing, and then it's a whole nother. So
Absolutely.
I don't know what they expect of us.
Yeah. And they don't know what to tell you, so we're just kind of sitting there waiting.
Well, I think the thing is, when I was a student back in the early 90s, they seemed to have the writing center. And if you work with a person, work in the writing center, they can write better, so they can reword that person help you with it. But now, you go into Microsoft Word, it will help you reword things. I have to check the grammar, and it's something you change my words. And challenges is taking that to the next level.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Anybody create, how many of you create your own GPTs? One. Anybody know what that is?
Tell me another.
If you have ChatGPT on the left, there's a thing that just says GPT. It's basically a repeating process, kind of like a macro, you think about it, but it's more of a verbal, longer-term process. So you can upload, what do you use it for? I mean, what do you use it for?
I use it for a bunch of different things. So like, for example, my company, sometimes I have to run focus groups. And I, a lot of times have focus group, like people in my focus groups that are spread across like different areas of the country. So I can't really like get them all together and sit them there, right? So I developed an AI agent, or a GPT in this case, where I give it like basically an instruction of like what the focus group's about, whatnot, and kind of like basic like what I want to find out from the focus group. Then I actually have that person use the GPT runs the focus group for me, and it creates an Excel spreadsheet of all the feedback it collected from the user. Then I get that Excel spreadsheet, and then I take all those Excel spreadsheets, so let's say like 10 of them, right? And then I upload it into another GPT, which reads through all of them and gives me an executive summary of
Then yes,
the whole
I
thing.
So when you click on
I
GPT,
know that's what it was called, so I've done that.
yeah, but you save it as a GPT,
Yes.
and then you just upload the data, and it does the same thing to it every time.
Okay.
And you can train it very simply. When you create one, there's the screen on the left where you have a conversation. I'm going to give you a bunch of information. I want you to create a course syllabus. I want you to, the syllabus needs to look like this. You can upload a sample of your template. So it says put it in that document, in that format. It needs to include these 3 things. It needs to talk about this. It needs to include this paragraph. And then on the right side, you can upload a document and see how it does. You're like, oh, it didn't do a great job. So you go back and let's say, yeah, where you did this, we need to do this. Where you did this, we need to do this. Where you do. So you tweak it, and once it's all done, you have that process set up the way you like it. And anytime after that, you or anyone else that you give access to can go in and upload their information, and they have that answer back. Now, also millions and millions and millions of GPTs that are already created. If you click on it, there's categories. You can go to education, and you see create rubrics for this, do all this stuff for whatever. So it just goes, yeah.
So it's just a template.
No, it's a conversation, it's a recorded conversation you have with GPT to develop a process. Then you save that process, and it can repeat itself with every time you give it new data. So if you had a certain way you wanted to record a student's assignment, an essay, based off of a rubric, based off of your grading criteria, based off of how you want it, what you final output you want it to be, you test it, you like it, you save it, you can upload one essay at a time and it'll outkick a grading sheet with the score and feedback and everything else based on, you can also use it to create your own tutor for your class. You can upload the syllabus, you can upload the content, they can go in and ask a question, you can train it. Don't give them the answer, walk them through, when you go to the writing center, what's your declarative statement, right? What are your 3 points that you want to make? This is what's in your first paragraph, what's in your second, and then we'll walk them through it, and as they're responding, they'll piece it together, and when they're done, the tutor will have the answer. The great thing is you can do that same thing, say, great, now do it in Spanish. So it's a great way to create individual learning plans for students that are struggling or have different concerns that you want to help them out, give them a little extra help with.
Yeah, students who have like combinations, for example.
Yeah.
I never thought about it, like, something very simple.
There was an article that came out this week that says a school in Texas has increased their scores dramatically. They only teach using GPTs and their students are only in class for 3 hours.
Is that the school in Texas?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I haven't dug into all the details on it yet because it just came out, but let me go over a couple of quick, I can share these later. Like I said, if you want to reach out, I share. So AI just reflects the culture it's trained in. So why does that need to be singular culture? Why can't we bake in a broader understanding of everything that we're doing, right? Yeah, we're gonna have a picture. Not gonna go through all those points you can read. Send you later. Come on, right? So.
Oh, I thought you were sending this to us.
Some people like pictures.
2 hours.
Yeah, yes.
I'm gonna put it in AI.
I don't wanna leave this place, literally, the sunset
Can you
was
send it
tears
to me?
yesterday. I stood there for an hour watching the sunset. I caught I wish you were there because you're the best photographer and my phone is trash.
So I do have a leadership group to go through those 5 steps. I normally do that.
So,
I'm happy to share that. If you want to give me feedback today, there's a little.
Oh, it's cool.
You give me feedback about what you thought about today.
Let me get off live.
I can answer questions or we can sit here and chat for a
oh
little
my
bit,
God.
but
Were you?
thanks for
Oh, the
playing.
day before. Okay.
I have a comment.
Please.
So this is the best